The last couple of weeks have had some Mike Ryan butting heads with Billy Corben. We're not going to do that this week, but we are going to cover some of the crypto stuff again with Billy Corben because the biggest of the conventions was here in Miami, is here in Miami, and we're surrounded by a whole lot of just awful around here right now. Greasy and awful. And also, I'm guessing, some reasonable businessmen who are pioneering and different and have altruistic means, but mostly not that. And we will get to that in a second. Also, Ron Magill is going to join us later this hour. We will talk to Ron Magill about possibly running for office. Billy Corben continues along that quest. Billy is joining us remotely, though, today. He's on assignment because he has other jobs when he's not trying to run corruption off in Miami and failing at every turn. So, Billy, thank you for joining us. And let's start with your crypto thoughts. What has descended upon Miami as a tech hub is deeply offensive to me as someone who cares about this region and was perfectly fine with the amount of fraud and awful we had before all this nonsense started arriving.
Yeah, last week, Mike came on just to basically agree with me about a bunch of stuff. It was very bizarre. He wanted to argue with me about stuff that we agreed on. And then while attempting to brand me what was it? What do we call
a non-original thinker, broad stroke Billy.
Right, broad stroke Billy. He makes the most general and nihilistic argument that anyone could possibly make. That's sort of like everything's shitty, everybody's a fraudster, everything's buyer beware. You know, poor and minorities always get screwed. So I don't know, in a very Samson-esque kind of philosophy, was kind of like give up the ghost. It was bizarre, and all the same, you know, kind of defending the hustle economy that exists here in Miami. And I don't really see what his position was, but I understand that there's good crypto and there's bad crypto. But what we see happening here in Miami, I think, is not the best possible version of this. It is not about democratization. It is not about helping the underprivileged or the poor. It is about keeping the rich, keeping the people in power, and actually, I'm sorry, not keeping the rich, making the rich richer and benefiting that top fraction of a percentage of people who are already rich and are already in the crypto space. And to that end, we have Mayor Ponzi Postalita, Francis Suarez, embarrassing himself and our community on an international scale. And poor, you have to see this clip. It's like he must have sold a shitload of Amway products after he was done with this speech.
Well, we will play this for the audience as we continue to talk about this, but give us some broad stroke, Billy. Give us some broad strokes on what it is we're about to hear Francis say, to give us the context on. It really does feel, Billy, and this is something we've been talking about for a while. The part that's embarrassing is not the grift, but it feels like, and you correct me if I'm wrong about this, that he doesn't really have any fluency over what it is he's talking about, that it's just gibberish and bullshit and word salads because he's making money off of this and he wants it here, but he doesn't even realize what he's welcoming.
Yeah, Fabiola Santiago evidently has been listening to the Because Miami podcast, because in her column last week, she basically transcribed a collection of my diatribes and passed it off as her column. And she says there's a Spanish word that locals often use to describe Francis Suarez these days, postalita, a poser, vain, and preoccupied with the superficial or personally advantageous to the detriment of what matters. And I've been saying that for years, but certainly for months on this show. And her headline was, Miami's crypto bull is a metaphor for Mayor Suarez's leadership. All flash, no action. What I've been telling you, he's checked out of the city of Miami and he's running for higher office. And he's doing so by attempting to harness the fundraising power and the cult-like atmosphere of the crypto bros, and of course to fundraise through that kind of toxic libertarian anti-deregulation, but totally regulate us a hypocritical, nonsensical environment, like these, like what appear to be like what Mike referred to last week as educational conferences, which are not that. You look at Francis and you can see this is not about education. This is about indoctrination. And you hear Francis, to your point, he has no idea what the hell he's talking about. He's desperate for an applause line. He keeps going in fits and starts, waiting for applause. At one moment, there's like a pop, which sounds like a single clap. It just as easily could have been someone popping some bubble wrap. And he like, his head quickly darts to be like, yes, please. It was like Jeb Bush in the please clap moment. You know, it was that pathetic and desperate. And then he just starts throwing in buzzwords to try to get a rise out of the crowd with Bitcoin and crypto and deregulation. And then at the end, he doesn't know what the hell to do because he's just not getting the love from the audience that he expects, particularly for his volume level. And he starts referencing communism and socialism. It's insane. And next to him, these poor bastards, Miami Beach Mayor Dan Gelber and Miami-Dade County Mayor Danielle Levine Cava. I don't know why they opt in to humiliate themselves, but if there was a better shot, we could have easily done one of those, you know, slow zoom in, curb your enthusiasm kind of, you know, kind of memes with them, because they are just like, they look utterly humiliated by the embarrassing display by this Mayor Ponzi Postalita.
You have heard the sound now for yourselves, and Billy has been telling you this for a while. Billy, that is the first time, though, that you have defined Postalita. That is the first time that we have heard you explain why you keep referring to him this way. So, again, give the formal definition. And I want to ask you a question, because it sounded like you accused an award-winning Miami Herald columnist of basically just stealing your material and turning it into a column. So I want to make sure that you elaborate on that as well.
Well, it's certainly the best form of flattery. And Fabiola Santiago has been writing some exceptionally good columns lately. But then even a broken clock is right twice a day. But the reality is that, I mean, if you read her column last week about the Miami crypto bull as metaphor for Francis Suarez's leadership, this just sort of empty, all empty gestures out of just ego and self-interest, which is a poser. You know, that's what a postalita, like a postcard, just, all facade, no substance. It reads like, what can I tell you? It reads like a transcript of our show. I mean, that's all I can say. I'm not accusing her of plagiarism. I'm simply saying anyone who's been paying a modicum of attention to what we've been talking about here, and there's clearly a few people that you would know that this is our shtick.
Well, one of the things, Billy, that has happened here with more people hearing your voice and people again and again being appalled, even though you're a fire hose of outrage, some of this stuff is so outlandish, so ridiculous, coming from the town of Carl Hiaasen and Dave Barry, where it was plenty ridiculous before when there were newspapers strong enough to stand up to some of this stuff. But everything has collapsed. The corruption has run rampant over our entire city. And I want to ask you, because it's confusing to me, when you are out here transparently and again giving us facts on what a bogus grift fraud this mayoral office is to just make money privately with a figurehead position that makes him only famous and valuable because he's in the position as the son of his father, who was also corrupt and used Miami this way. When you and Fabiola Santiago are saying in print and loudly, here are the facts of why this is all a huge fraud, as the mayor of Miami now trying to be the president of all the mayors, why do all your facts and words not end up doing anything to harm somebody who is in office and nobody can touch? Like, why is corruption this acceptable?
To borrow a term from Reverend Al Sharpton, I'm unembarrassable. And that is the position that a lot of these politicians find themselves in. It's the reason for the tribalism. If you find a cult, if you carve a niche for yourself, you are going to be completely bulletproof from the Fourth Estate, from criticism. You're immune. Now, they have thin skin, mind you, but they are immune to this because he's carved a lane for himself. He's identified this thing. That's why he's checked out of the city. He doesn't have to run for office in the city again. And if he did, I've no doubt he may win, even if he went for, a kind of a yokel race or a district race for state or federal office, he'd probably win. But the bottom line is that this kind of like rolls off of him because all you really need is flash right now to shiny objects to attract a certain base. And as long as you have that base and can raise that money, and as long as you have low to no voter turnout, remember, this guy won, what did he get, like 20, 25, maybe 30,000 votes? That's in a city of nearly 500,000 people. So as long as you can galvanize a particular minority or a rich and powerful niche, like in this case now, the crypto and VC bros that he is basically attracted here to the actual direct detriment of the Miamians who elected him, he's going to have a winning campaign, or at least be able to raise a whole shit ton of money.
Billy, I want to get to redistricting and some of the appalling things that are happening to change voting lines in ways that are convenient. But before we get to that, because I don't know when people listening to this, if they've been listening over the many, many weeks where you have detailed what you call Francis Suarez, which is the most corrupt politician in the history of the most corrupt region in our country very often. So when most corrupt mayor. Okay, forgive me. The most corrupt mayor, not politician. He'd have some competition for that one. But when you say that, instead of just people thinking that you're a flaming liberal who's always got the same agenda and platform, who's always going to check a bunch of boxes, can you just give the people the facts on why what you're saying is so, and not just a blanket accusation? Because I know we've done this before, but I just don't want people to misunderstand that you don't do this because you're politically opposed to Francis Suarez. You do this because you're politically opposed to the corruption that consumes this place that we care about at every turn.
Well, first and foremost, these are nonpartisan races in local politics. I'm not a fool. I understand that these candidates still may have party affiliations, and Francis Suarez is in fact a registered Republican. But the fact that he's a Republican is like the fifth thing that's wrong with him. The reality is that he does not run for office, local office, with an R or a D next to his name. And I've been calling Francis Suarez a con man since he was first elected mayor almost 5 years ago. And I learned that from all of his actions and all of his behavior. I learned that from watching him over 8 years as a city commissioner, and during his first failed run for city mayor, where he had to drop out of the race humiliated against Tomas Regalado, the incumbent at the time. I say that because of his track record. I've been calling him a con man long before the crypto hustle. It's no shock to me. I mean, listen, Miami rarely shocks me, but regularly disappoints me. And that's true of its leadership and its politicians who have warped values and perverse incentives.
No, but the crypto thing is more brazen. It's brazen even by his standards, is it not? Like, even I don't even know where they'd rank where it is you arrive at him being this kind of corrupt, but even by his standards of sinvergüenza, even beyond that, this seems to go right to the top of your list on, like, good God, this is just a transaction.
Yeah, I mean, this is him telling us what I've been telling. This is Francis telling us about himself what I've been telling you about him for years and years and years. And if you look at the fact that he has not one but 2 private sector jobs in which he is unjustly enriched by his position as mayor. He is an attorney in which he claims that his client list, he's a real estate attorney in a firm with a new and very strong blockchain and cryptocurrency office, or practice, I should say. And he claims that his client list is private because it's attorney-client privilege, which is not only a bold-faced lie, but it also means that we can't see where his very obvious conflicts of interest are. I can tell you that he's directly profiting from most of the things that he is publicly advocating for when he claims to be on the time and the dime of the city taxpayer. A really good example I'm going to mention in the redistricting process, which is the Mel Reese soccer stadium scheme. He is a private client of Jorge Mas. He is literally in his pocket. He is being paid privately by Jorge Mas and also by city taxpayers to screw city taxpayers. This is a mayor that costs taxpayers millions of dollars a year in security, in salaries, in benefits, in perks, and yet he's off working for most of his day. He's considered a part-time mayor for his private clients. And who are his private clients? They are real estate hustlers and they are crypto hustlers. They are people who are looking to exploit the city and its residents and taxpayers. His constituents, who he is all too eager to exploit. And we've seen that time and again. The soccer stadium hustle, the Miami, what they're calling the Magic City Innovation District, which I call the Magic City Gentrification District. We see it in his comms director, his very first comms director, who was arrested for luring a teenage boy to City Hall and molesting him in the conference room next to the mayor's office. This was a comms director that Francis Suarez allowed to cover up prior arrests on his application for a job. It's in city government. This is a guy who's been shilling for a dubious imaginary coin that has lost 96% of its value, but who has paid off the city to the tune of over $5 million as a marketing expense in order to pay the mayor to promote this dubious product. This is a mayor who ran on resilience, on climate change, sea level rise, public transit, and affordable housing, all things that we need. And he's been in office for over 12 years, 5 of which as mayor, and he has done zero about. He shifted all of his priorities to running for higher office and lining his own profits the second he became mayor.
And that is why we have a standing invitation that Roy makes every week to Francis Suarez to come on here. He has wanted to come on via Zoom with just me. He does not want to do so with Billy, but we continue to invite him every week.
Yeah, I feel like I'm harassing them now. And they might send the cops.
Okay, that's okay. Keep sending the requests because we will continue to point to the things, the ways that people are down here ruining Miami, which they're doing to Coconut Grove. We've talked before. Coconut Grove might, terrain, richness, history, Coconut Grove might be the coolest city we've got in Miami. The redistricting going on there, what is the latest that is bothering you here?
And this is an actual power enumerated to the mayor by the city charter. This is like the one power he has that's not just him as a hood ornament, as basically a mascot sitting in the head coach's office. This is the one thing that he is allowed to do. He can veto shitty legislation by the city commission. And he didn't bother. He was busy at an NFT and crypto conference and allowed the time limit to expire on his veto power. And what happened is that the city commission hired redistricting consultants, one of whom I profiled on an earlier episode. He is a disbarred and disgraced former attorney in the state of Florida, whose house is in foreclosure, who got this gig basically as cover for the legitimate attorney that they hired, who is not allowed to interface offline or privately outside of the sunshine with commissioners, but this disgraced, disbarred attorney probably did.
They got better call Saul to handle a job that no reputable attorney would actually handle, and he was living as, did you say he was a squatter in a foreclosed home? This is beautiful.
Yes.
Okay,
yes,
we've gone over these details. Yes, disbarred as well as an added bonus.
So here's the thing. Commissioner Joe Carollo, Commissioner Como Mierda, wanted to carve up Coconut Grove, Miami's oldest neighborhood. It's historically Bahamian neighborhood. This is the community that literally built the original city of Miami with its own hands. What's known in part, and they've tried to designate as Little Bahamas, Coconut Grove. It's a very diverse community, but it is one of Miami's strongest Black voting blocks, and they decided they wanted to rip it into 3 pieces, being represented by 3 different commissioners, and thus basically destroying the power of this Black voting bloc. And the reason why they wanted to do that is they wanted to gerrymander Joe Carollo's house into his own district. Why? He doesn't live in his district. He's required to, however, by city charter, in order to represent the district and run for that office, he has to live there. So he's been renting for thousands of dollars a month a house in Little Havana in his district. So he wants to save, of course, the thousands of dollars that he is spending on that rent. But also, you might recall we've been talking about the incredible bombshell federal lawsuits by the ball and chain owners, the bar owners on Calle Ocho, who he has a personal and political vendetta against and has been trying to shut down for years and years and years. They're suing him in federal court for violating their constitutional private property rights, like a third world dictator, depriving them of their business and their property and their ability to make a living and feed the hundreds of families of their employees who work there. And they had a judge determine that Joe Carollo was not acting in his official capacity and as commissioner when he has been violating their constitutional rights, and thus is personally on the hook, not only for his attorney's fees, which he hasn't paid a single penny of. The city attorney, the mob lawyer over there, Vicky Mendez, has been covering up for him, but they also can take his property. They'd be able to take assets of his that he owns unless he can make a homestead exemption on the house, the $2 million house that he owns in the Grove. So what this gerrymandering allows him to do is not only save the thousands of dollars a month on the rental property he has in Little Havana, it enables him to make a homestead exemption to save on his property taxes, number two, but it also lets him keep his house in the inevitable event, that this judgment goes against him and they can start seizing his property. And now they can't, because in the state of Florida, we don't allow someone to go after their homestead. So he gets to keep his house. He claimed that he was not going to vote on this map because it would unjustly enrich him. And there's very clear laws and ordinances against commissioners voting on issues that would directly financially benefit them, which this unquestionably does in the three ways that I described. He said he had an ethics opinion that he can't vote. The next meeting he comes in, he says he got an ethics opinion, but wouldn't reveal from whom that he can vote on this issue, and voted on this issue, and basically tore the Grove to pieces in a crooked deal between what they call the three amigos, Commissioner Manolo Reyes, Commissioner Alex Diaz-Portilla, and Commissioner Joe Carollo. What was even worse is that the one black commissioner, Commissioner Christine King, sold out her own constituents and allowed this corrupt deal to go through. Now, Francis Suarez could have vetoed it, but didn't. Why didn't he veto it? Why is Francis allergic to doing the right thing? And the reason is he needs to count to four. Francis has a special meeting coming up, not to deal with sea level rise, which he has deprioritized resiliency issues because his office says they don't work fast enough and they don't give him PR and political wins immediately, cosmetically. So they have deprioritized resilience. Not a special meeting about affordable housing, which is now in beyond crisis mode in the city of Miami, but a special meeting for the Mel Reese sports welfare deal to give away 131 acres, Miami's largest piece of public park property, give it away in a sweetheart deal to Jorge Mas and David Beckham, Francis Suarez's billionaire private clients. And he needs 4 out of 5 commissioners to vote for that. So what Francis doesn't want to do is to irk any of those commissioners, because then he gets down to 3 votes or 2 votes, and he doesn't get to push this con through the commission. And that's what this is about. This is not horse trading over what's best for the people of Miami and what's best for our constituents. This is all self-interest, and this is all horse trading for their own profit. It is outrageous. It is corrupt. I don't know where the FBI and the U.S. Attorney of the Southern District are, but we know we cannot count on the state attorney to do the right thing down here. But we need a major federal investigation into the overt and shameful corruption in this community.
He is indefatigable and also exhausting, because that is an enormous amount of ground that he just covered on a little sliver of the lack of principle that we have governing South Florida. So I want to just lighten this up here a little bit with death of all things, because I'm trying to make this a little softer than the fire hose that it's been of just Miami is the worst. We will have Ron Magill shortly here to make it a little bit lighter. But I wanted to talk to you about the genius of Gilbert Gottfried. We have not talked about it very much on the show this week, and he gets to be in a very small circle of people. If you think of degree of difficulty in entertainment, stand-up comic, making a living that way is very high. And over all of time, you're only going to know about 100 names here, Billy, where people who can make their career so well at the top of this, of just naked, stripped down to your talent. Go ahead, and here's the expectation of making people laugh. And Gottfried, whether you liked him or not, hugely distinctive. Many people were annoyed by him, but so rare to have a personality that is that kind of unique.
One of the great things about Miami is it attracts so many wonderful, diverse, colorful characters. And one of the blessings of my life down here, particularly through radio, through your show, through Paul Castronova's show, for example, I've met some really wonderful people. And I often appeared Friday on Paul's show, and that would be the day in which the stand-up comics would come into the show to promote their weekend gig at the Improv. And so Gilbert Gottfried was there one weekend. This is 2013. And Gilbert Gottfried's a man who, just the sound of his voice makes me laugh. If it doesn't make you cringe, it makes you it makes me giggle. A man walked into a doctor's office. It's just, it's amazing. Like, I'm cracking up on the setup, let alone the punchline. And in fact, he's famous for telling the aristocrats joke during a roast on Comedy Central that didn't make the cut because it was so filthy. And that joke is all set up. And the punchline's one word. It's nothing. It's the aristocrats. Spoiler alert. But he's just a genius at not just crafting a joke, but telling a joke. And I was just enamored. I brought in my Dirty Jokes DVD to have him autograph it that morning. And I was sitting right next to him, as the guests did on Paul's show. And I was enamored. And I'm not often starstruck. And I was absolutely starstruck meeting Gilbert Gottfried. And he proceeded to, on the air, just absolutely roast me about how I was engaging him and talking his ear off when we were off the air. And just, and so I asked him to autograph my Dirty Jokes DVD, which he did. I posted a picture of it on my Instagram and Twitter. He wrote, "To Billy, stop talking to me, Gilbert Gottfried." And it's one of my prized possessions. And I will tell you, I think stand-up comedy, to your point from earlier, outside of, the military or the police or a window washer, dangerous jobs, this is one of the bravest jobs that you can do. And to do it successfully requires an extraordinary amount of failure. And I have seen, part of the reason why I admire stand-up comics so much is that, not just simply the craft of it, but I've seen some of the greatest comics of all time bomb on stage. And Gilbert Gottfried is one of them. That night, or that weekend at the Improv, we went with a 4-top. That's the old Improv at the Seminole Hard Rock Hotel. And we were the only 4 people laughing in the room. This was the second time I saw him live. And I just I couldn't believe it. I'm this is one of the funniest human beings ever to live. And people were just sitting there stone-faced. And I don't understand that.
Was it Miami? Was it they were expecting DJ Laz and they were confused by Gilbert Gottfried? Or what was that? Or was he just terrible?
It wasn't he was hilarious. And he was doing him, he was doing his shtick. He was telling dirty jokes and doing the vaudevillian, shticky stuff, all from the album and the DVD at the time. And I just I don't know what people expect. It's not like they got free tickets. It's not like they didn't see whose name was on the marquee. I don't understand people who come to a comedy club not ready to laugh, because you're kind of part of the show. The reason there's a 2-drink minimum is not just money. It's also because it makes the jokes funnier, lighten up and come in and have a good time. But Gilbert Gottfried did not give a shit. He was a pro. He just powered on and went from one joke to the next, did a little bit of crowd work, was making fun of them, not laugh, coming to a comedy club to not laugh. And it was just it made it funnier for the 4 of us who were sitting off to the side.
You were admiring the intimacy of getting to see the experience of a legendary comedian who had sculpted his craft enough to be able to go on the road and tour with it, gets to Miami. Miami does not appreciate this thing that he has crafted, him, his legend, none of it. And he grinds through 90 minutes of fuck off, fuck you, fuck yourself this way, fuck yourself that way.
It was amazing. It was watching an artist at work. And in a way, it's kind of what I do here every week, only not funny and with a slightly less annoying voice.
Ron Magill will join us next. I admire Billy Corben, at least in part, because he continually picks losing fights that are almost certain to be losing fights, and he knows going in that they're going to be losing fights, and yet he insists on fighting those losing fights. He wants to get Ron Magill to run for office, and this is pretty simple, actually. It's not even so much about politics. Ron Magill is a kind and decent and honest man, and therefore he has no place in politics because politics are awful, and he will never do what Billy is suggesting that he do. But if he did do it, he would do it well and honorably, and he would try to make a difference, and he would probably make a difference. So the audience should know, and Ron should know, that Billy has done a lot of fundraising to get the polling done for a lot of money that reveals that if Ron Magill chose to run for office, Ron Magill would have a very good chance of winning and representing a district he cares about. So with that as set up, he has tried to get Run off the ground. He has gone to his home a couple of times, and Ron doesn't want to do it at all, and his wife wants to do it even less than Ron does. So it's never going to happen under any circumstances. But Billy, explain why it's a fight worth fighting, and explain how it is that you expect with one last-ditch Hail Mary to actually get Ron to do this after, as Mike Ryan pointed out earlier this week, you violated all sorts of campaign finance laws by offering to get Ron Magill to do this by having people in our audience give a lot of money to his substantive endowment.
Wait, not only did I not do that, but that would have violated no campaign finance laws. There is no campaign, as Ron, I'm sure, will make quite abundantly clear today, at least for the moment. There's no campaign
Billy,
yet.
You're killing me.
There's no campaign yet, but I will tell you, I think the important thing is that we fight the fights worth fighting, not just the fights that we can win. Okay, I mean, teams don't show up just to play the games they can win. You got to play all the games on the schedule, and in this case, I put my own games on the schedule, and this is a fight worth fighting. Is the bottom line. This is a district that Ron has lived in for at least 50 years now. I believe that Ron deserves better representation, and his neighbors deserve better representation than the congressman they have right now. A congressman that does in fact not even live in that district, does not care about the district, does not care about the issues that matter to the people in the district. How do I know? Because I know Ron. And I've talked to Ron, and I've talked to his neighbors, and I've talked to the people who care about that district, who are stakeholders, and who want somebody who gives a shit about the people and about their problems. And I know Ron is one of those people because he actually is one of those people who lives in the district and cares about his community and the environment and his neighbors. He also is an activist that cares about the environment, that cares about the wildlife in that environment, and cares that we actually have a physical home and a physical place for creatures, human and non-human alike, to still exist in, which is not a foregone conclusion down here in South Florida, as we know. Now, while Ron has lived there for 50 years, I'm afraid now that he's invited me to his home twice, he might move, so that the next time I go and try to meet with him about this, he's no longer there anymore. But I just think that, as I said last week, to know Ron is to love Ron. And when you have not only a person who is that well liked and respected in the community, but cares that much about his community, and as an activist has an issue that he is passionate about. He'll tell you, oh, I have no experience in politics. He's right. But the people don't care. The poll shows that. The poll shows that they don't really like their entrenched perpetual feeding at the public trough politician who has won office after office, who was the county mayor for 10 years. They don't know him. The people who know him don't like him, but they know Ron. And the people who know Ron really, really like him. And Carlos Jimenez doesn't have an issue that he's passionate about other than Carlos Jimenez's wallet, and Carlos Jimenez feeding his family at the public trough. He's working on his third public pension right now, Carlos Jimenez. Ron is only working on his first because he has dedicated his life to an issue that matters to him and to our community. And that's what matters in politics, that you have that passion and that drive, even if it is about that one issue or those two issues that Ron is so passionate about. And he could do so much good, not only for his community, but for that issue that he's so passionate about.
It's a hell of a pitch. Like, I think you know that he's right, actually, that you know that he's right. You just don't want to do it.
Listen, I don't know that he's right, that I think I could win. I think this, this whole political arena is just so ugly that I would never subject my family to it. Now, having said that, I just want you to know how flattered I am because, Billy and I go back and forth with a lot of things. We have a lot of fun with each other. But, I really have a lot of respect for Billy for the very reason that you brought up. The fact is that he doesn't care if it's a losing battle. If it's a battle worth fighting for to make a point, he'll do it. And he will immerse himself in these things that have sometimes, many times, no chance. But it's the principle of the thing, and Billy is, if nothing else, a person of principle, and I'm very flattered by that. I told him to his face when he came to my home, with several other distinguished people, that I couldn't believe that I thought I was being punked. I thought this is a joke.
But Ron, if I may, please, it's very nice of you and very humble, but the polling is scientific, and it says rather remarkably that you would have the chance to unseat an incumbent. You can say all you want that that's stupid and ridiculous, but the polling, and it's expensive and it's thorough, says,
and I feel guilty that he spent money on this. I feel like I need to pay him back. I feel terrible.
But you'd have a chance is the point. It's fairly remarkable, and you are throwing away a chance at making a difference. There is a chance. There is a chance, Ron.
There's a small chance, but I'm hoping that I can make a difference continuing doing what I'm doing, Dan. The one thing about politics is that I've ridden a wave of wonderful support from the community. It's been wonderful because of what I do. I think when you enter into politics, what you do is you automatically get half the community to hate you. I mean, we're in a society today where, gosh, I don't know if you could be a politician anymore with just immediately, proving that half people are not going to like you.
More important to be liked, Ron Magill says, by way of leadership.
Here we go, Dan.
As democracy is threatened from every angle, Ron Magill says, no, that is not the fight for me. I would prefer to simply be liked by more than half the population. That's what's important in life.
Get more done by being liked by more people that are willing to listen to me, as opposed to once you get into politics, they say, oh, you're one of those? Nope, I'm not even going to listen to you. I'm not even going to listen to you. Now, if they don't know what side of the fence I'm on, they'll listen to me because I'm the animal guy. I'm kind of a nice guy, or an animal guy, I should say. And that opens more doors for me. Whereas you get into politics and right away, certain doors will just be shut on you because we have a bunch of asses in politics today.
I understand that, but I disagree because, as I said, to know Ron is to love Ron. So it doesn't matter. And yes, the forward-facing politics is toxic and divided and tribal in this country. There's no doubt about it. But the truth of the matter is, I don't think people think of Ron as a Republican or a Democrat. They think of Ron as Ron, regardless of what letter might be next to his name on the ballot in November. Hint, hint. I don't think that they would think of him as a partisan. They know where he stands and they know what issues matter to him, and they are not partisan issues. And yes, again, the public face of politics is tribal and toxic. But the reality is a different thing. Debbie Merkisel-Powell, who had that seat prior to Carlos Jimenez, who was among the team that went to see Ron and Rita and to talk about this, she'll come on the show and she'll tell you, when she was the congresswoman for your district, she had a fabulous experience. Her husband had a fabulous experience. They felt that they connected with a lot of people and they were able to do a lot of good. And their colleagues in Washington, D.C., both on the Democratic side of the aisle and the Republican side of the aisle, were by and large, privately anyway, very receptive and very warm. And they're particularly receptive and warm to experts. And that's the thing. There's not a lot of experts in Congress. They're mostly they have general interests. They're attorneys by and large, actually. That's probably the number one profession of people in the Congress and the Senate. But Ron is an expert in something. And when you're an expert in something, you become, for both sides of the aisle, that go-to person on those issues. Ron would be that guy in Washington, D.C., on the environment, on endangered species, on pollution, on preservation. He would be the go-to person for the president of the United States, for the Senate, and for the House, no matter who's in power.
Ron, it's very persuasive, and all I want to do here before we leave is for you to promise us, because you have not totally shut the door in Billy's face when he has come to your home.
Because he always comes with a key lime pie, which is unbelievable. His wife makes the best key lime pie on the planet.
I do not want you to leave here. You are not allowed to say there's a 0% chance that you do this. Reject the idea in front of us. He's got a question to you about a local issue that you care about and that we care about with the Seaquarium. But before we go, tell us that it is not a 0% chance, that you're saying there's a chance, just because the chance is not 0%.
I will say that my father always taught me to never say never. Let's leave it at that.
Okay, that is an opening. Billy Corben will take it. It is a losing fight, a desperately losing fight. We have no chance of winning it, but the door has not been closed. Billy, the Seaquarium issue, I just can't believe that exists still. I can't believe that it exists. No, but I can't believe it exists because it was primitive in 1970, and it's just inhumane to an animal, a thinking animal, to keep it in that tank with a place that doesn't seem to have the resources to make sure that these animals are cared for the way that, and Ron would not say this, but the way they're cared for at ZooMiami, because they have the support needed to make sure that the animals aren't treated cruelly. But what did you want to ask Ron about the Seaquarium?
Yeah, well, I have a rare on-topic question for Ron. I'm the idiot who wants to get the animal guy to run for office, not like who wants to ask the animal guy an animal question. But that really is my question, Ron. Last weekend at the Miami Seaquarium, a dolphin named Sundance, during the Flipper show in front of families and tourists, went rogue. The dolphin went dolphin, to paraphrase Chris Rock, and attacked a trainer who was put in the hospital with fortunately non-life-threatening injuries. But I ask you have a wide variety of species of mammals at ZooMiami, and I'm wondering, we keep hearing these stories, starting with really Blackfish, I think exposed it most of all. What is going on psychologically in terms of the captivity of some of these mammals, and is that what's happening? I mean, is it just have some of these attractions just kind of outlived their cultural relevance?
I think certainly there's been an evolution in maintaining animals under human care. I, for one, and I know I'm going to make a lot of my peers upset, would never support taking any cetacean out of the wild and putting it in captivity. Cetaceans, the whales, the dolphins, the porpoises, these are, hugely nomadic animals that need amazing amounts of space to survive. I will say, back decades ago, the Seaquarium had really good people there. I'm going to tell you, they had really good experts that did the best they can with what they had available to them. I can't speak for what's over there now, but from the news that I'm hearing, it's horrific. It's just a really bad situation. That facility has been going downhill now for years. Anyone who's visited the Seaquarium recently, you see all the rust, all the degrading areas and stuff like that. It's antiquated, to say the very least. So I'm not there now. I don't work with them there. But when you have an animal as intelligent as a dolphin, and I've said this on the show many, many times, I put them almost in level with human beings, and in many respects more intelligent than human beings in their ability to communicate and stuff. Go rogue like that. It's like a human. If you do something to a human that can get them so upset, they're going to retaliate. Now, just like human beings, you have individuals that are worse than others for whatever reason. We have humans that, are serial killers. It doesn't mean that all humans are serial killers or they're going to become serial killers, depending on what. There's genetic things that are involved also. Always, I keep on saying, listen, when it comes to this whole marine mammal thing, I think that is slowly but surely being phased out. I think keeping those animals under human care is not something that's going to be accepted much by the public unless it's a last-ditch effort to save a species or save an individual. If you're going to rescue a whale to rehab it and release it back to the wild, if you're going to try to breed these animals under human care because they're becoming extinct in the wild and extinction, I understand that. That's an exception. But to bring an animal out of the wild, to put it into a pool, to do shows, I'm sorry, I'm never going to be there. Not again.
But Ron, beyond that, though, there is the possibility, is there not, that this animal is smart enough that this is an act of rabid rage protesting untenable conditions, that this animal is lashing out, not because it's a bad animal, but because it's been in solitary confinement and has gone crazy for however long it's been there, the way that whale has rotted to death and gone crazy as Lolita, as we've profited, as that facility facility has profited off of making that animal jump in a tube that's about 1/1,000,000th of as big as she would need to live a normal life that would be sane. We've made those animals crazy.
I agree with you, Dan, that there are certain conditions that can lead to that, to lead to just, psychological destruction of these animals because they are so intelligent. Having said that, still there is each individual animal. And I will also want to say, I knew people at the Seaquarium 20, 30 years ago. They were good people. They did they had some really great care with what they had available and what we knew at the time. Again, having said that, today it's different. Today, I cannot support what goes on there. We've all evolved. People change. Unfortunately, some people are slower to change than others. And the situation at Seaquarium has become, to me, untenable. It's unsupportable. I feel terrible because there's still some good people that work there that are trying to do the best they can, but they just don't have the facility. And it's a very sad situation.
Billy?
If you were in Congress, you could help.
Oh, God, Billy.
You could help run, Ron, run.
Yeah, run away, Ron. That's what
okay.
you need to put.
Ron, we will continue. We will have T-shirts printed. The slogan.
Oh, God.
Yes,
Stop it, guys.
we will have to do more here to see if we could get Ron to run for office. There is plenty of time. Ron, thank you for being on with us, sir.